There are moments and seasons in reality TV where production can overstep by adding in a twist or a format that can greatly hinder a player or players, putting them in situations that are too much to overcome and they eventually lose. We've seen this happen on numerous shows like Big Brother, Survivor, and The Challenge is no exception. For this video, I picked a handful of instances in which I feel like players mostly lost on a season due to interference or a decision made by production. Now, I'm sure there could be a laundry list of instances like this, but I only picked like 8 to 10. So if a moment like this comes to you when watching this video, but you don't see it in the actual video, let me know the moment down in the comment section below and giving why it would fit this bill. Now, getting all of that out of the way, let's jump in with the first player I wanted to highlight is Cohutta in the Challenge All-Stars 2. Cohutta had been absent from the challenge since season 27 that originally aired in 2016. He came back in ready to compete, where he found an alliance with Darrell, MJ, and Brad's side of the house. All-Stars 2 was very interesting as it started off as a solo format, and then all of a sudden, in episode 6, changed to a paired season format. In said episode 6, Kendall had to be medically disqualified after falling awkwardly in the Deep Dive Daily Challenge. Laterian, her partner, was worried he'd be eliminated as well, but at the arena, TJ announced that LT would still be able to compete. That episode's elimination would turn from a team-based elimination to solo, where it would be Tyler versus Laterian in the pole wrestle, where whoever won would be Jasmine's partner moving forward. Now, I bring up what happened in episode 6 because in episode 7, nearly the exact same thing happened, this time between Cohutta and Casey. Casey learned that she was pregnant on the season, was going to get medically disqualified, but instead of allowing Cohutta the option to go down to the arena to play for his spot in the game, TJ tells him that because his partner left, he also has to leave. Now maybe this is because Casey and Cohutta weren't already voted into the elimination, or maybe it's because the last place team, Jasmine and Laterian, had used the life shield on themselves, so there wasn't a clear-cut last place deserved team in the elimination for Cohutta to face.
Team game. You both have to go home.
But really, I find all of that to just be excuses, and shows glaringly some inconsistencies within the game. If you set the precedent that at one point, a player who loses a partner can play in the elimination for a chance to stay, then that should be an option throughout the game. My theory is that the show thought sending Laterian home right after being paired up with Kendall would have been unfair, so they allowed him to play the elimination game in hopes that this kind of thing wouldn't happen again. But it did happen again, and in the next episode, mind you. I really think that the challenge production team should have thought this through thoroughly before making a game time decision and then reverting course. Either stick to everybody is locked into these partners and if your partner leaves, you leave, or let the players who lose their partner out of their control, let them play in the game to stay in the game. In Battle of the Exes 2, Theresa and Wes were set up to have a deep run. They were a strong duo, having won 3 daily challenges, taking out their biggest adversaries in Bananas and Nani early, while also gaining numbers to keep them heavily insulated. They were looking like the team to beat with no real barriers keeping them from a final. That is until TJ announced the Battle of the Exile twist. Now, I will always say that this version of the Redemption House is the best the challenge has ever done, but if you are Theresa and Wes, this twist was a nightmare. Not only were their biggest rivals just back from out of the blue, but the whole house was now against Theresa and Wes. This was evident in the next daily challenge, Wrecking Ball, where it was a sabotage mission that everyone ganged up on the Grey duo. Wes and Theresa got last place, were sent directly into the elimination against Leroy and Naya, where they got walloped in Hall Brawl. What once was a dominating power couple with their fingers tight on the pulse of the game, they were now out in an instant. Now, I will say that Wes got the rawest end of the stick in this instance, as Theresa did come back to be a replacement at the last moments to be paired up with Leroy after Naya was pulled from the game. She won her matchup with Nani, making the final and getting second place. If the game played out with no Redemption House, I feel Wes and Theresa had a good chance of making the final, but they still would have had their hands full trying to win against Sarah and Jordan. But that doesn't take away the fact that this twist really took out a team that was in serious contention of a finals run and winning, and took them completely out of the running. It's unfortunate that a landmark season like the Challenge's 40th, Battle of the Eras, would end up on this list. However, this is only the first of 2 instances I picked to highlight in this video. The first of which happens in episode 4 with Era 4's targets Jenny and Horacio coming in last place to be sent directly into the elimination. Laurel and Bananas then sent Anissa and Derrick in to face against them in Pick It Up. This elimination was like a complex game of jacks. The matchup of Horacio versus Derrick was a fierce one. It was a nail-biter until the very end. However, this elimination was marred in controversy with how the edit tried to hide the chaos behind the scenes. First, we can talk about what was shown in the actual edit. On first glance, it was odd when, after checking the tapes, TJ announced that Derrick had won when it seemed he was missing a piece. In a second look, we can see that Derrick's jacks were stacked on top of each other. So Derrick had all of his pieces, but everyone was confused, including TJ, who originally declared Horacio the winner based off of just looking at the boards. When reading interviews, it sounds like the pegs had trouble staying in the boards, leading for crew members being the ones to pick them up and placing them back on the boards while the competitors kept playing. This is what helped the results to become chaotic. Something else out of Horacio's control was when his ball got stuck for an extended period of time. Although some say it was only 10 to 15 seconds, in an elimination game like this, that time really matters. This got to fever levels online between fans and cast members debating on who won and who didn't. Did production not play test the tracks or the board to understand if they were faulty in any way? At least if they did that, maybe they would found something and try to fix it for a fair competition prior to them playing the actual game. Also, being more transparent would have helped the audience understand how this level of miscommunication came to be. Instead, they hid the fact that they had crew members help clean up pegs and didn't show Horacio's ball getting stuck, and they did their ruling with no further camera angles. Even when you hide the smallest amount of details, it comes off as weird and clunky and makes the audience feel like you're not very trustworthy. Speaking of Derrick, let's take a look at his performance in Season 11, Gauntlet 2. Now, luckily, this season isn't shrouded in controversy, but a questionable format production implemented in the season led to Derrick fighting to survive the whole season. Gauntlet 2 had the format where each team, veterans and rookies, had to have 2 captains. The point of the captains were if their team lost on a given day, they'd automatically go into the elimination. Derrick became the male veterans captain in episode 2 by winning Name That Coconut against the original captain, Adam Larson. Derrick was tasked to go into a total of 5 eliminations during Gauntlet 2. I mean, this season put Derrick on the map, showing his heart, tenacity, and his will to win. The marquee win for Derrick was when he faced against the taller, heavier Cyrus in episode 10's elimination Beach Brawl. Derrick scrapped his way through every elimination win, but it was unrelenting given the format of the season. Also, there was no way he could give up the captain role unless he lost an elimination and was being sent home, which unfortunately happened. On his 5th and final elimination, which took place in episode 17, Derrick played against Timmy in reverse tug of war. Historically, any weight-based elimination will greatly favor the bigger and heavier competitor unless there's a way for a player to disqualify themselves or your name is Jordan. Unlucky enough, Derrick lost right before the final when the bigger, heavier Timmy won against Derrick, who tried but literally had no chance. If this season had a normal format with who would be sent into elimination, I feel at some point Derrick would have gained the respect from his team and they would have exempted him from elimination contention at some point. But production's format doomed Derrick to fight to survive the entire season. Now we upgrade from eliminations to production problems in the finals, with this first instance coming from a challenge spinoff, the Challenge USA. There was turmoil at the starting line when Ben was medically disqualified at the beginning. The game went from an even 10 players to an odd 9. This was weird because the entire first day was a partner portion with everybody changing partners at each leg. With 9 players, one person was going to be solo at every single leg for the first day. For the first leg, they had to do a partnered swim. Sarah got to swim and do the puzzle alone while everyone else was paired up with someone else. Desi, who played a very solid game, was paired up with the one person who couldn't swim on the entire cast. It took all but for 2 seconds for Enzo to quit, taking himself and Desi out of the game in one quick swoop. I understand the challenge having set up the rules, but there was an uneven amount of people. Why make this more complicated with having one woman always be running solo when you can just see if Desi can just do the swim and puzzle by herself? You could have gotten Enzo out, kept Desi in. Now it's an even 8 players with everybody swapping partners and then Desi just being partnered up randomly from here on out. Also, why are these partners tethered so tightly together? They weren't in these partnerships the entire game. Also, the finals would eventually turn into a solo game. When each woman performed by themselves, they came in last place. Kayla finished phase 2 last. Justine had to memorize double the amount of numbers in phase 3 than everybody else who had a partner. She had to keep going through the course multiple times to try to get it right, but eventually she timed out. And Angela had to do the overnight portion with no partner to relieve her or let her sleep, while everyone else transported dirt. She did have less dirt, but we don't know exactly how much less she had than everyone else. If Desi would have been able to stay in the game, at least all the pairs would have been even and everyone could have had equal partners through the entire first day. Look, I can't make a video on this topic without bringing up All-Stars 2 Final and the missing 4th step. In All-Stars 2, the game came down to a single impasse. All the teams were stuck at a safe and none of them could unlock it and to run to the jet to claim victory. Everybody had worked their tails off in the final. Darrell and Janelle had a lead going into the safe, but that lead quickly evaporated when Johnny and MJ joined in, as well as Melinda and Nehemiah. The competitors were getting frustrated with nothing working. It wasn't until production realized that they didn't print all the steps to effectively open the safe. In an interview, it was mentioned that Johnny and MJ had asked a crew member about why the lock wasn't opening. Once they told that person the numbers, that crew member just told them, "You got it right, just run to the jet." Now, of course, that looks weird, and the show needs a shot of them opening the safe. So production flagged them down, made them get into a truck, they drove them back to the safe. On their way to the safe, Johnny and MJ were told by production how to open the lock, and they were told about the missing 4th step. When they rejoined everyone else, they took this newfound knowledge and this newfound step to unlock their safe, grab all the money inside, and head back towards the jet. All of this on the edit looked very suspicious. But once we heard more of the behind the scenes, things started to break down and people were just becoming untrustworthy of everything that they just watched. I remember listening to the Challenge Mania podcast episode where Derrick mentioned the missing 4th step to Janelle, who was giving her side of the story of what was going on in the final. And once she heard that MJ was given a missing 4th step by production, I remember just how upset Janelle got and stuck with me to this day. And the final segment that I want to bring up for this video is the karma vote. Need I say more? Okay, I will. The entire 40th season, the challenge had all the eliminated contestants giving points to the players who were left in the game. No one knew what these points were for, so they just gave them out willy-nilly, all for the points to be accumulated for the finalists for them to count for 2 checkpoints in the final. First of all, what does a popularity vote have anything to do in the final? The final should just be about the finalists competing at the task that they were given. Also, this greatly hindered the newer players because players like Rachel had years of friendships with everyone, while players like Jenny and Michele debuted in the 30s to where they didn't have as strong connections of no fault of their own. Jenny, who dominated the final, at least still received 1st place, but Michele, who outplayed Rachel and Tori in the final, was dropped down to 3rd place, while Rachel, who had a very humdrum final performance, jumped up from 3rd place all the way to co-1st place. Like, I can't take away anything from any of these finalists as they all played hard to get to the final and won or lost within the rules of the game, but this is on production for leaving the karma vote to count for so much in the final. But that is it for this video. Again, I know that there are so many instances like this throughout the entirety of the challenge, so if you thought of another moment of a format or twist or a production ruling that completely sideswiped a player and took them out of the contention for winning or got them eliminated, let me know down in the comment section below. I would love to hear what you have to say. I also want to give a special shout out thank you to everyone who supports me over at patreon.com/angelcakevids. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's watching this video up to this point. I'll be back really soon with more challenge content, more content in general. But until then, peace.